You ever get that feeling in your gut that something's off? Not just a little off, like, universe shifting, stomach turning wrong. That was me, standing in the middle of our garage, staring at the twisted front end of my wife's Toyota Camry, trying to figure out how the hell she walked away from something that looked like it should have killed her. I'm Mark. 38. CPA by day, homebuddy by night. My wife, Claire, is, or was, the exciting one. Always had that spark in her eyes, the kind of woman who made grocery shopping feel like an adventure. I loved her so damn much it hurt. So when I got the call last Tuesday that she'd been in a crash, my world caved in. They said it was bad. Single car. Country road. No witnesses. She hit a tree going 60. But by some miracle, she only had a fractured wrist and a few bruises. The car was totaled. I took a day off work, picked her up from the ER, brought her home, held her all night. She was trembling, crying, whispering how scared she'd been. I believed every word. I held her like she was made of glass. Then I walked into the garage the next morning to look at the car the tow truck had dropped off. And I knew. I just knew. The airbags had deployed, yeah. But the damage didn't line up. No blood on the steering wheel. Seatbelt not locked. Her shoes, those red flats she always wore, were too clean. Too dry. Like they'd never seen mud. And there were tiny glass shards on the passenger side floor, not the driver's side. It was staged. All of it. She was faking. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. My heart pounded like a war drum. Instead, I played dumb. Brought her tea. Sat on the couch beside her while she watched old sitcoms like nothing ever happened. And that's when I noticed her phone. She never let it out of her sight. But this time, she'd fallen asleep, deep sleep, the kind where her breathing evened out and her mouth hung open just a little. Her phone was right there on the armrest. I didn't want to look. But I had to. God help me, I had to. The texts were under a contact named Lena, but I wasn't born yesterday. The messages weren't between girlfriends. They were intimate. Flirty. Urgent. Things like, did he buy it, and, soon we'll be free. One message made my blood run cold, stage 2 complete. He's still clueless. I dropped the phone like it burned me. I stared at her for a long time as she slept. My wife. My partner of 12 years. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. And in that moment, I realized, I didn't know her at all. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her awake and demand answers. But instead, I backed away. Quiet. Careful. I sat in the kitchen for hours just thinking. Trying to make sense of it. The accident wasn't real. The injuries were faked. And the text messages, who was she texting? Who the hell was Lena really? And what was stage 2? When she finally woke up, I played the part. Concerned husband. Loving fool. And I started planning. If Claire wanted to play games, I was going to learn the rules. And I was going to beat her at her own twisted story. The next day, I told her I needed to go into the office, even though I'd taken another day off. Instead, I drove to the crash site. I found it easily enough. There were still skid marks on the road, a dented tree, bits of broken headlight. But here's the thing. There was no tow truck debris. No glass trail. No evidence that a car had been pulled from there recently. I walked the grass, checked the tree. Nothing matched what her car looked like now. So where had the crash actually happened? Had it happened at all? Back in town, I called the insurance company pretending to confirm the claim. The lady on the line sounded confused. I'm sorry, Mr. Dawson, but we haven't received any accident report from your policy yet. Are you sure a claim was filed? My throat went dry. No claim. But Claire had said she already filed. Showed me the email confirmation. I asked her that night how long the payout would take, and she said 10 to 14 business days. She was lying. Again. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked her laptop. She'd deleted the browser history, but not well. I recovered it. There were searches about how to fake a crash, insurance loopholes, and, God help me, how to disappear with a new identity. I felt sick. Who was this woman sleeping in my house? What was she planning? Then, just when I thought I'd hit the bottom, I found an email. It was from a man named Daniel. Sent just 3 days before the crash. Subject line, almost there. The body read, the fake ID is ready. We just need the cash. Are you sure he suspects nothing? I froze. Daniel. That was who she was running away with. That was Lena. That night, I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at her sleeping face, heart hollow. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to cry. But I just sat there, cold. Because now I wasn't just heartbroken. I was scared. If Claire was willing to fake a crash, what else was she willing to do? The morning after I found that email from Daniel, something inside me changed. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like a stranger in my own life, like I was trapped inside someone else's nightmare. And the worst part? I still loved her. That love didn't just vanish, even after everything. It clung to me like smoke after a fire, bitter and suffocating. Claire made pancakes. She was humming. Humming. Like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't living in a house made of lies. You want blueberries or chocolate chips? She asked, spatula in hand, smiling like it was 2011 and we were still happy. Blueberries, I muttered, my voice barely working. I couldn't look her in the eyes. She placed the plate in front of me, kissed the top of my head like she always did. Thanks for being here through all this. I don't know what I'd do without you. God. She was good. Too good. I chewed each bite like cardboard. Nodded when she talked. Laughed when she joked about how ugly the rental car was. And all the while, I watched her, really watched her. The way her hands moved, how her eyes darted just a second too long when I asked about the insurance payout. That afternoon, I started taking notes. Quietly. In a notebook I kept hidden in the basement behind an old tool chest. I wrote down every inconsistency, every suspicious glance, every email, every lie. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, turn it over to the police. A lawyer? Maybe I just needed proof for myself. Something to look at when I started questioning my sanity. Because let me tell you, gaslighting is real. Even when you know the truth, it starts to wear you down. You begin to wonder if maybe you're the crazy one. Maybe you're just jealous. Paranoid. Seeing things that aren't there. But then more cracks appeared. She got a call late one night. I was brushing my teeth when I heard her whispering on the porch. The kind of whisper that wasn't afraid of being heard, but careful, controlled. I dried my hands and stepped quietly to the window, peeking through the blinds. She was pacing. Her back to me. But I could hear fragments. No, he doesn't know. Stop asking that. Pause. Next week. I told you, I'm working on it. He keeps asking questions. Another pause. No, I haven't told him about the money yet. I need more time. Money. I went back to the bathroom, heart pounding. I didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the ceiling while she slept beside me, her breathing soft and even. A few days later, she said she was going to visit her sister in Raleigh for the weekend. Just to get some air, she said. I need time to clear my head after the crash. I didn't argue. Didn't ask questions. I even offered to drive her to the airport. But the second I dropped her off, I circled back and waited. She didn't go through security. She didn't board a plane. Instead, she met a man outside the terminal. Tall. Dark hair. Confident posture. They didn't kiss, but they hugged, tight. Intimate. Then they walked to a silver BMW and drove off together. I followed them. 2 hours south, they checked into a roadside motel. I watched them from my car, heart in my throat. When the lights in their room flicked off, I nearly screamed. Not out of rage, but grief. Utter, hollow grief. That night, I slept in my car outside the motel. Rain tapping on the windshield like the ticking of a bomb. I stared at my steering wheel, fingers clenched around it, and tried to make sense of who I'd become. I wanted to go in there. To knock on the door and confront them. Demand the truth. But I didn't. Because deep down, I knew I wasn't ready for the answer. Instead, I waited until morning. When they checked out, I followed them again. This time, to a small strip mall where Claire entered a pawn shop while Daniel, yes, I finally saw his name on the motel registration, sat in the car. I waited until she came out. Then I walked in after her. The guy behind the counter didn't even blink. You with her? I nodded. Yeah. Just forgot something. He smiled. She said the ring was her mother's. Real shame. Got a good price for it though. My stomach turned. She'd pawned her wedding ring. My grandmother's ring. I walked out of the shop and into the sunlight, blinking like a man freshly released from prison. And in a way, that's what it felt like. I was done pretending. When Claire came home the next night, I didn't say a word. Just sat on the couch and watched her unpack. She was careful, too careful. As if she knew I might have followed her. But I didn't ask questions. Didn't accuse. And that's what threw her. She was waiting for a fight. Maybe even hoping for it. But I gave her silence. That's when she started to squirm. Over the next few days, she got jumpy. Paranoid. She asked if I was okay at least 6 times a day. She cooked more. Cleaned more. Wore my favorite perfume. One night, she even tried to seduce me. And when I pulled away, she flinched like I'd struck her. That's when I knew she was scared. Not of me. But of what I knew. And I had no idea how far she'd go to keep her secret. The next morning, I found something new in her laptop's trash folder, an unsent email. Addressed to Daniel. Subject, I think he's on to me. The body, if he finds out everything, we're done. I'm not going to jail. If he makes a move, I'll handle it. Just be ready. I stared at the screen, my pulse thundering in my ears. I'll handle it. What did that mean? What was she planning? That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in the basement with my notebook, going over everything. The crash. The texts. The lies. The motel. The pawn shop. The email. She wasn't just running away. She was plotting something. Something darker. And I needed to figure it out before it was too late. Because Claire wasn't just cheating. She was dangerous. And I was trapped in her story. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Claire, smiling at me across the dinner table, holding my hand on long road trips, whispering "I love you" when she thought I was half asleep. All of it felt like a lie now. Every memory poisoned. Every word suspect. But I wasn't just dealing with heartbreak anymore. This was something darker. Something dangerous. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to see a private investigator. His name was Carl Vickers. Ex-cop, built like a truck, with sharp eyes that looked like they could cut through steel. I'd found him through a coworker who once used him during a custody battle. Carl didn't ask many questions, just listened while I laid it all out. The staged crash. The texts. The fake ID. Daniel. Everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and rubbed his jaw. She's planning to disappear, he said flatly. And take something with her. Money, most likely. Or, something else she needs to start fresh. My life, I said, barely above a whisper. Carl nodded. You're smart to come now. Whatever she's doing, she's not working alone. You mentioned a Daniel. I'll find him. Give me a couple days. He slid a contract across the desk. Do not confront her, he warned. If she suspects you know too much, things can escalate fast. I signed. Back at home, I acted normal. Or at least tried to. But every word out of my mouth tasted like ash. Every smile felt like a mask. Claire didn't seem to notice. She was better. Happier. She walked with a bounce in her step now, like a weight had been lifted. I realized that weight had been me. She cooked dinner that night, something she hadn't done in weeks. Lasagna. My favorite. She served it with a smile and kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. I almost laughed. But I played along. I told her work was busy. That I might be traveling soon for a client audit. I watched her reaction like a hawk. She blinked, just once. A flicker of something. Panic. Hope. Really? For how long? She asked, too casually. A few days. Maybe more. They're still deciding, I said. She nodded, chewed her food, didn't ask another question. But I saw the wheels turning. She was planning something. And she thought she had time. Carl called me 2 days later. I found him, he said. Daniel Rivers. 32. Criminal record sealed but not clean. Former IT specialist turned grifter. Known for identity fraud, insurance scams, and, ironically, faking accidents for payouts. They'd been involved before. Claire and Daniel. 5 years ago. Before she met me. They'd pulled a scam in Michigan. Faked a robbery, stole thousands from her old employer, disappeared. Charges never stuck, but people talked. Then they vanished. Until now. They've done this before, Carl said. She's the honey trap. He's the muscle and tech. Classic setup. I sat in silence, gripping the phone. She's not just cheating, I said. She's a criminal. Yeah, Carl said. And if she's planning to vanish, it's going to happen soon. You need to decide, do you want to stop her legally, or do you want to catch her in the act? What do you mean? If we let her run with it, build a case, we can bring it all down. Fraud, conspiracy, identity theft. Maybe even federal time. I hesitated. Or. I asked. Or we confront her now. Shut it down. But you might lose your chance at real justice. I stared at the window, Claire's laughter echoing from the living room. I want to catch her, I said. That weekend, I told Claire I had to leave for my work trip early. Left Friday night with a packed suitcase, kissed her goodbye, told her I'd miss her. Then I drove 3 blocks over, parked at an old friend's place, and waited. Carl had bugged the house, nothing invasive, just audio from the living room and kitchen. Enough to hear if anything happened. For 48 hours, I lived in silence. Eating cold takeout, staring at my phone, waiting. On Sunday night, it came. Claire made a call. It's done, she whispered into the phone. He's gone. Everything's packed. Pause. No, he suspects nothing. I told you, he's not that type. Another pause. Tomorrow morning. We'll transfer everything. By the time he's back, we'll be long gone. I felt ice settle in my chest. She wasn't just running. She was stealing everything. I checked my accounts. Gone. Drained. Every last cent from our joint savings transferred to a dummy account. One I hadn't recognized. Carl was on it within minutes. We've got her. We just need to let her finish the move, then we call the cops. Monday morning. I watched from a borrowed car as Claire loaded the last suitcase into the back of a rental SUV. She was dressed in jeans and a baseball cap. No makeup. No jewelry. She looked new. Like someone else. And then, from the alley, Daniel appeared. Tall. Athletic. Shaggy dark hair. He walked like a man who had no fear of consequences. He kissed her. She laughed. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Hold, Carl's voice crackled through my Bluetooth. He was parked 2 cars down, watching. They're leaving now, I said. Let them drive. I've got the feds on standby. We followed from a distance as they drove to a small branch of a credit union 2 towns over. Carl had already tipped off the authorities. Inside, they tried to finalize the transfer. Move the funds from the dummy account into offshore crypto wallets. That's when it happened. Two plainclothes agents stepped forward. Badges flashed. Claire's face turned to stone. Daniel bolted. Bad move. He was tackled halfway to the door. Claire didn't resist. She just stood there, eyes wide, frozen. I sat in the car, watching through the window. And I felt nothing. It's been 3 weeks since the arrest. Claire is being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted identity theft, and falsifying an insurance claim. Daniel's facing even more, his record caught up with him fast. They'll both do time. I gave the police everything, emails, texts, browser history, even the staged crash photos. Carl testified. The case was airtight. People ask if I feel better now. I don't know how to answer that. There's no satisfaction in watching someone you love fall apart. No victory in seeing the truth when all you wanted was the lie to be real. But I do sleep now. And sometimes, that's enough. Last night, I finally walked into the garage again. Looked at the wrecked Toyota. The broken windshield. The red flats, still sitting by the door. I picked them up. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt free. Some people think closure comes with answers. It doesn't. Closure is quieter than that. It comes when you stop needing to understand. When you stop asking why. When you finally realize you might never get the full truth, and it wouldn't change anything even if you did. It had been 6 months since Claire's arrest. She took a plea deal. 3 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole in 18 months. Daniel got 5. He didn't have Claire's charm or a good lawyer. And he didn't cooperate. Me. I didn't press charges. I didn't need to. The state had everything they needed, and frankly, I didn't want to be any more involved than I already was. But healing wasn't as simple as signing a few legal papers and changing my bank passwords. I had to rebuild me. At first, I stayed in the house. It was strange, walking through the same rooms that used to feel like home, now filled with shadows. The kitchen, where Claire used to hum while cooking. The hallway mirror where she always fixed her hair. The guest room where she'd sneak off to text Daniel when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Every room felt like it belonged to someone else. One night, I sat on the living room floor with a box of her leftover things, scarves, makeup brushes, a half-finished journal. I almost threw it all out. But something stopped me. Instead, I donated it. Everything. Gave the furniture to a shelter. Packed the rest in storage. I kept only one thing. A photo of us in Colorado, smiling, arms around each other, unaware of the storm coming. I kept it to remind myself, even the people who smile the most can lie the deepest. I started therapy. Not the once a month, how are you feeling, kind. The real, gut-wrenching, tell me everything, kind. And at first, I hated it. I hated sitting in a room, rehashing every red flag I missed, every moment I gaslit myself into trusting her again. But over time, the noise in my head quieted. I stopped blaming myself for loving her. That was the hardest part, learning that trusting someone isn't a weakness. Being betrayed doesn't mean you were foolish. It means you were human. 3 months ago, I quit my job. It wasn't because of Claire. It wasn't even about the affair or the fraud. It was because every day in that office reminded me of who I was when I met her, driven, ambitious, convinced I had life figured out. And I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I took some time off. Rented a cabin in Oregon. Spent weeks hiking, reading, cooking for one. I learned how to fish. I chopped my own firewood. I stared at the stars and felt small, in the best way. It was the first time I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was just living. A letter came last week. It was from Claire. I recognized the handwriting before I even opened it. For a moment, I considered tearing it up. Burning it. Tossing it in the trash and never reading a word. But curiosity won. It was 5 pages long. She didn't apologize, not in the way most people would expect. There were no, "I'm sorry I ruined everything," declarations. No, "I still love you, please." Instead, it was honest. She told me about her past. About how she met Daniel when she was 20, how they ran their first scam out of desperation. How she swore she'd never do it again. And then, she did. Over and over. She said she loved me. And that scared her. Because real love doesn't fit inside a con. It demands truth. Vulnerability. Trust. Things she didn't believe she deserved. She wrote, "You were the only real part of my life. And I didn't know how to hold onto something real without breaking it. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just folded the letter and put it away. Because I finally understood, her betrayal wasn't about me. It was about her. Her damage. Her demons. And I wasn't responsible for saving her from them." A few days later, I met someone. Her name was Lena. We met at a bookstore, of all places, both reaching for the same novel. She laughed when I let her take it and offered me a recommendation instead. We started talking. Then texting. Then coffee. Then dinner. I told her about Claire, eventually. Not the full story. Just enough. She didn't flinch. Didn't run. She just listened. Lena was calm where Claire had been electric. Steady where Claire had been stormy. She didn't try to dazzle me. She didn't need to. She was real. And after everything, real was more than enough. A month ago, I went back to the courthouse for Claire's sentencing review. I didn't have to be there. But I wanted to see her one last time. To say goodbye to that chapter of my life, face to face. She looked thinner. Paler. But her eyes were the same, sharp, scanning the room like a chess player still looking for her next move. When she saw me, her lips parted slightly. Surprise? Guilt? Maybe both. I nodded once. She didn't smile. She just looked away. And that was okay. We didn't need words. Some endings don't require a conversation. Just silence. Now, I'm okay. I won't lie and say I'm fully healed. That's not how trauma works. Some scars never fade. But I've made peace with the story. I've made peace with myself. I've learned that people can disappoint you, deceive you, and still not take away your ability to trust again. I've learned that starting over doesn't mean erasing the past, it means learning from it. And I've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone real, someone present, someone honest. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And every morning, I wake up next to Lena and remember. The past is behind me. But the future? The future's mine to build. You don't get to choose how people hurt you. But you do get to choose what you do with the pain. 2 years had passed since Claire went to prison. I still remembered the way the gavel sounded the day they sentenced her, like a door slamming shut on a chapter of my life I never thought I'd write. The courtroom was packed, but all I heard was silence. The kind that comes after a storm. Now, that silence had become peace. Lena and I had moved into a small house in Asheville, North Carolina. A craftsman-style place with a porch swing, big windows, and a lemon tree in the backyard that refused to grow fruit but looked pretty trying. I worked remotely as a data consultant. She ran a wellness studio downtown. On Sundays, we made pancakes and watched documentaries. On Thursdays, we danced barefoot in the kitchen to old Motown records. It was a simple life. But it was ours. No lies. No secrets. Just two people showing up for each other every day. Still, sometimes the past found its way back in. Like that morning. It started with a voicemail. Unknown number. I almost deleted it without listening, but something stopped me. Hi, it's Claire. I was told you were still listed as my emergency contact. I get out in 3 days. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say thank you. For not hating me. For not coming to court and trying to burn me to the ground like I probably deserved. I hope you're happy. I really do. She paused. Then whispered. Take care, Will. Click. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Not because I felt anything romantic. That part of me was gone. But because part of me had once believed in her so deeply, it was hard to hear her voice and not remember the version of her I loved. I didn't tell Lena about the voicemail. Not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want to give it power. 3 days later, I got another call. This time, from a lawyer. Claire had listed me as the executor of her release plan. Apparently, she had nowhere else to go. No family. No friends willing to take her in. She'd been rejected from 3 halfway houses. I sat in my office, staring out the window, listening to the lawyer explain my options. "I'm not suggesting you house her," he said quickly. "But she needs someone to sign off on her release check-in plan. A job contact. A shelter referral. Anything. Otherwise, they'll delay her release again." I hung up and sat still for a full hour. Then I went upstairs to talk to Lena. She was reading on the couch, legs tucked under her, her glasses slipping slightly down her nose. When I told her, she didn't react the way I feared. No anger. No jealousy. Just one question. "What do you want to do?" Not what I should do. Not what would make her feel better. Just what I wanted. That's love, I realized. Real love. The kind that lets you breathe, even when your past walks through the door again. I didn't want to help Claire because I owed her anything. I wanted to help her because helping someone doesn't always mean you want them back in your life. Sometimes it just means you've grown enough to offer closure without reopening the wound. So I made a few calls. Found a women's shelter in Raleigh that accepted nonviolent former offenders. Helped coordinate a job application at a bookstore I used to visit back when I lived there. Signed the papers. Sent them in. I didn't call Claire. Didn't text. I didn't need a thank you. This wasn't about her. It was about me choosing who I was, despite her. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, a letter came in the mail. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in the same sharp loops I used to see on sticky notes by the coffee machine. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Will. I'm not going to make this long. I know I broke something in you. And I'll never ask you to forgive me. But you helped me when you didn't have to. Again. I got the job. I'm working mornings, stocking books and helping customers find things they didn't know they needed. It's quiet. Honest. I think I like that now. I don't know if I'll ever be whole. But I'm trying. You taught me how to try. That's all I ever wanted to say. Be good. Stay kind. Claire." I folded the letter and tucked it in a drawer I rarely opened. Not because I planned to reread it. But because some stories deserve to be kept, not revisited, just acknowledged. A few months later, Lena and I got married. It was a small ceremony in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Only 15 people. Just the ones who'd shown up when life was messy, not just when it was beautiful. We wrote our own vows. I told her that love isn't found in grand gestures or picture-perfect days. It's found in showing up for each other on the boring Tuesdays. In making coffee when the other's tired. In forgiving the hard parts and celebrating the soft ones. She said she never believed in soulmates until she met me. And somehow, I believed her. That night, as we lay in bed, rings still fresh on our fingers, I thought about how far I'd come. I'd been a man who trusted too much. Then a man who trusted no one. And now, I was a man who trusted wisely. Because pain didn't make me cynical. It made me careful. But it didn't close my heart. And that was the real victory. Life keeps moving. It doesn't stop for heartbreak. Or betrayal. Or even justice. But it offers second chances. Sometimes in the form of strangers. Sometimes in the form of bookstores. And sometimes, in the mirror. I don't know where Claire is now. I hope she's okay. But I don't look for her anymore. I don't wait for closure. Because I found mine. And it looks a lot like peace. Just because the past knocks, doesn't mean you have to answer. 6 months into our marriage, life had begun to feel strangely normal. I used to think normal was something to fear, routine, dull, predictable. But now, normal felt like a gift. Like quiet mornings with steaming mugs of coffee. Like watching Lena tuck her hair behind her ear when she concentrated. Like finishing a workday and realizing I hadn't thought about the past once. But just because you stop thinking about the past doesn't mean it stops thinking about you. It started with a podcast. A true crime one, ironically. Lena and I listened to it while hiking, a habit we'd picked up during fall, when the Blue Ridge Mountains were on fire with color. Halfway through an episode on fraud and corporate cover-ups, the host said a name that stopped me in my tracks. Claire Maddox, the woman once accused of faking a car accident for insurance fraud and manipulating her fiancé into the scheme, is now the subject of a possible book deal. I froze on the trail. Birds chirped overhead. A couple walked by with their golden retriever. Lena paused the episode, turning toward me slowly. "You okay?" I nodded. Lied. "Yeah, just surprised." She didn't push. She never did when I needed a minute. But inside, something stirred. Claire? A book. What version of the story would she tell? Would she spin herself into the victim? Would she leave me out entirely? I didn't want to care. But part of me did. Not because I missed her. But because I hated the idea that truth was optional. That people could do horrible things and still control the narrative. That the person who rebuilds often goes unseen while the one who breaks things gets the microphone. 2 days later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject line, Press Inquiry, Claire Maddox Story. It was from a journalist working on a piece about resilience and reinvention. She said Claire had agreed to be interviewed, and they were hoping to speak with people from her past to understand the full arc of her journey. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I closed the laptop. Lena looked up from the kitchen. "Was that?" I nodded. "Claire. Press." She raised her eyebrows. "Are you going to talk to them?" I hesitated. Then said, "I don't know." Because truly, I didn't. Part of me wanted to stay silent. Let the past rot in the ground I buried it in. But another part of me, maybe the part that still had bruises, wanted to tell my story. Not out of revenge, but out of truth. Because silence, sometimes, felt like complicity. I agreed to meet the journalist at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Bright. Safe. She was younger than I expected. Sharp eyes. No tape recorder, just a notebook and genuine curiosity. We talked for over an hour. I told her what Claire had done. How it had unfolded. How it had nearly broken me, and how I'd rebuilt. I didn't dramatize it. Didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth. By the end, she closed her notebook gently. "You're a good man, Will." I smiled. "I'm just a man who learned the hard way." Before she left, she asked if I had any message for Claire. I thought about it. Then said, "Yeah. Tell her I hope she finds peace. And tell her I already did." Weeks passed. I didn't think about the article much, until it dropped. The headline read, "Redemption or Rewriting? The Unfinished Story of Claire Maddox." To my surprise, it was balanced. The journalist had included everything, Claire's version, mine, and the court records. She didn't paint Claire as a hero. She didn't paint me as a victim either. She let the facts speak. And maybe that was the best kind of justice there is. After the article went viral, something strange started happening. People began reaching out to me. Not to gossip. But to share their stories. A man from Seattle who'd been cheated on after a serious injury. A woman in Ohio who'd taken the fall for her fiancé's financial scam. An elderly veteran who said, "Reading your words helped me realize I'm not weak for being lied to. I'm human." I didn't know what to do with that at first. But Lena did. She said, "Maybe this is your next chapter." And so it began. Slowly. I started a blog. Nothing dramatic, just weekly posts about resilience, recovery, trust, betrayal, healing. Stories that sounded like mine, and stories that didn't. It grew faster than I expected. People shared it. Commented. Cried. Suddenly I had a community. Not one built on bitterness, but on rebirth. And for the first time, I saw that maybe what I went through wasn't just about me. Maybe it was a story meant to be shared. Not because it was tragic, but because it ended in hope. One evening, about 6 months later, I got an email from Claire. The subject line read, "No response expected." I almost deleted it. But I opened it. It read, *Will. I read the article. You were fair. Kinder than I probably deserved. I never told anyone this, but after the trial, when I was in county for those first few weeks, I used to replay the moment you looked at me on the floor after the crash. Not with hate. Not with rage. Just disappointment. That haunted me more than prison ever did. You told your truth, and I respect that. I hope Lena knows what she has. I'm trying to be better. Goodbye. Claire. I closed the laptop and exhaled. It felt like the final page. Not dramatic. Not fiery. Just done. And that was enough. Today, my life is calm. Lena is 6 months pregnant. We're expecting a daughter in July. We've already picked the name, Hope. Because that's what carried me when I couldn't see the road ahead. Because that's what remained when trust was shattered. Because that's what I want our daughter to grow up believing in, no matter how messy life gets. Hope doesn't mean ignoring the past. It means refusing to let it define your future. And as I sit here on the porch, watching the lemon tree finally blossom, I know. The story wasn't about the crash. It wasn't about Claire. It was about what came after. Some stories don't end with a bang. Some end with a breath, and a beginning. I always thought closure came with a door slamming shut. With a dramatic moment. A confrontation. A final word. But now I know the truth. Closure is quiet. It's the silence after a storm. The morning after a long night when the world feels still and you realize you survived. You didn't just survive. You're alive. It was a Wednesday when Lena went into labor. I was halfway through writing a post called, "What Forgiveness Isn't," when she called from the bedroom and said, "Will, it's time." Time. The word hit me like a wave. We had rehearsed the moment, packed the bag, planned the route. But nothing prepares you for the real thing. Not when you're about to meet someone who'll change your life forever. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and new beginnings. Lena squeezed my hand so hard, I forgot I'd ever been shot. Or betrayed. Or broken. All I could think was, this is the strongest person I've ever known. It took 9 hours, 2 nurses, and 1 very patient doctor, but at 2:14 a.m., our daughter entered the world, screaming like she had something to say. Lena cried. I cried. The nurse wrapped her up and handed her to me. "Here's your girl, Dad." Dad. I looked down at her, pink-faced, tiny fists, eyes squeezed shut like she was resisting the light, and I knew this was it. My new reason. My new story. We named her Hope, just like we promised. And as I held her in that quiet hospital room, I whispered the only thing that felt right. You're safe now. You're home. The weeks after her birth were a blur of sleepless nights, baby cries, and coffee. So much coffee. But even at my most exhausted, I never once thought, I can't do this. Because I'd already lived through worse. And because this, dirty diapers and lullabies and 3 a.m. bottle warmings, this was the good kind of hard. The kind you choose. The kind you're grateful for. Hope had Lena's eyes. My mouth. And a quiet strength, even as a newborn, that made me believe in something bigger than myself again. I used to wonder if I'd ever trust the world again. Turns out, all it took was one little girl with a strong grip and a softer heart. A few months later, I got invited to speak at a local college. The professor taught a class called Modern Ethics and Consequence and had come across my blog. She said, "You've lived the kind of story that forces students to confront gray areas, morality, trust, the ripple effects of personal decisions. Would you consider sharing it?" At first, I hesitated. But Lena pushed me. "You're not just a survivor, Will. You're someone who learned. That matters. So I said yes. I stood in front of a class of 60 undergrads, bright-eyed, curious, half on their phones, and told them everything. Not to impress. Not to scare. But to remind them that choices matter. That the damage we do to others always outlives the moment. And that healing isn't an event, it's a process. One girl stayed after class. She looked no older than 20. She said, "My mom went through something like this. Your story helped me understand her more. Thank you." I walked out into the evening chill, filled with something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Lena went back to work part-time, but we rotated baby duties like pros. Our house was louder now. Messier. But fuller. And in the middle of the chaos, something beautiful happened. We started dreaming again. Not just surviving. Dreaming. We talked about moving to a bigger house. We joked about writing a book together, her side, my side, our side. We made plans for Hope's first birthday, even though she was only 6 months old. Life had become a place of possibility again. And for once, the past didn't feel like a shadow, it felt like a stepping stone. One evening, after putting Hope to sleep, I was cleaning out an old drawer and found the engagement ring I'd once bought for Claire. It was tucked in a small black box, untouched since I'd hidden it there the day she was arrested. I held it in my hand for a long moment. Not with anger. Not even with sadness. Just reflection. It was a symbol of a life that never came to be. A version of me that no longer existed. I showed it to Lena. She stared at it, then smiled gently. "Let's sell it. Start Hope's college fund." We laughed. And just like that, the final ghost of Claire was gone, transformed into something good. Something for the future. Months passed. Seasons changed. Hope said her first word, duh. She started crawling. Then standing. Then babbling nonstop like she had stories to tell, even if the words weren't fully there yet. She was fearless. She'd fall, then get back up. Again and again. Watching her, I realized she was my mirror. We both fell. We both got back up. And neither of us stayed broken. I still get the occasional message from people who read the article or found the blog. Some share stories of betrayal. Others just say, "Thank you for not sugarcoating it." But my favorite ones are from people who say they showed my story to someone else. A friend. A parent. A spouse. It reminds me that stories are never really ours to keep. They're bridges. Mirrors. Lifelines. And if mine can keep one person from believing they're worthless after someone else's lie, then it was all worth it. One day, years from now, Hope will ask about our life before her. Maybe she'll read the articles. Maybe she won't care. But if she does ask, I'll tell her the truth. That once upon a time, her dad was broken. And then someone came along who didn't fix him, but reminded him that he wasn't unlovable. And that after the storm, a little light named Hope walked into the world and taught him how to live again. I'll tell her that love is not blind, it sees everything, and chooses to stay anyway. And that strength doesn't mean never falling. It means getting back up every time, no matter how many times life tries to knock you down. So, here I am. On our porch. Hope's asleep. Lena's inside, reading a parenting book she'll never finish. The stars are out. The breeze is warm. And for the first time in my entire life, I can say it without hesitation. I'm happy. Not because everything's perfect. But because I've made peace with everything that wasn't. And now I get to build something better. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. One chapter at a time.